High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, not Twitch. Yes, Twitch, not Twitter. It's not even called that anymore. But it's Revening's Wednesday. Welcome to Revening's Wednesday, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests, so let's get right into it. But before we do, I want to make sure and remind you, if you're returning, about Cherry Assistant. And if this is your first time here, check them out. So I work with Cherry Assistant to help place VAs with me, basically with Revening. And so Layla, who's here in the background, she was placed with me through Cherry Assistant, who is ran by DJ Kim. So if you go way back in WinsDay history, we were sponsored by Data Ghost, which was then acquired. It's DJ Kim's company and his partner. And so when it was acquired, they thanked Whiskey Wednesday, is what we called ourselves at the time, for being acquired. And so we just continued our relationship. So then they went on to open Cherry Assistant, which is a VA placing company. So I have a long history working with the owners of this company, and I've had only a great experience in terms of for one, just like having a partner who is willing to work with you, but then also they have the skills and the network to find the right people that you need. So whether you're looking for someone to produce a live stream, or you're looking for an executive assistant or anything else, we'll show you a menu at intermission of some of the services that they offer. But maybe it's time for you to start to delegate. So if you're watching on video, you can scan that QR code, or if you're on podcast later on, just go to reveting.com. Actually, no, you want to go to cherryassistant.com for this one. And if you sign up, let them know that you heard about them through WinsDay for get $250 off your first month. So big thanks to Cherry Assistant. And then also be sure to check out High Level. So again, if you're listening on podcast, just go to revening.com/high level for this one to find our affiliate link to get a 30-day free trial. But, I was a big HubSpot person. I was spoiled with all the really great tools, but when I started my own business, I couldn't necessarily afford those tools. So I went shopping around and I found High Level, and it was only $97 a month. So I was able to scale and not break the bank at the same time. Not only that, but it allowed me as a marketing agency to white label the CRM and provide that to my clients. Because as a marketing agency, of course, I want to show tangible results like, hello, leads in the CRM, boom. Okay, so when you join reveting.com and you work with us and we start helping you go live and helping you build a podcast and helping you post on your social channels, we get to show you directly the leads that we're bringing in, because we can offer you a CRM through app.reveting.com, which is just go high level under the hood. We've white labeled it. So you don't have to white label it. You can just check it out for $97 a month. Go to reveting.com/high level to try it for 30 days. But I want to make sure we get into our hot topic. So let's introduce our amazing guests. Welcome to the show. We've got Dylan, Jahraus, and Jamie Cook. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hello. All right, so let's hop into it. And first, of course, in good old fashioned Wednesday style, we're going to ask you to introduce yourself from birth to what brought you to now in 2 minutes. So, Jamie, what do you think? Can you kick us off?
I'll try.
Take it away.
So I was born in a small town in Delaware, went to school in a small town in Delaware, grew up in small towns. Um, I was an inveterate student. I was constantly studying. So I went to school in a small town in Maine. Came back from there after having studied English, and I have a degree in the philosophies of Western religions, thinking I was going to be a professor at one point. Didn't happen. I started out in the legal field. I worked about 15 years in the legal field in the corporate restructuring area. Went on to be a consultant in that area and had a second career in finance. That was because of life circumstances, and ended up falling into communications. I had never studied the field before, but I was kind of handed a team uh, sort of suddenly and had to learn very quickly how to run it, and found I loved it. I had a passion for getting information to people, learning how people consumed information, figuring out the best ways to talk to people, to have companies talk to people. So I went back and got my master's degree from Johns Hopkins. And during COVID, saw how small town businesses were trying to succeed during an immensely stressful time, and realized that some of the things that I had learned in my time with big business could be translated to small town communities and the resources they had there. So I opened Lead Out during COVID and went full time with it a few years ago, and now live in a small town in Maryland and work with primarily small businesses and nonprofits in rural areas to help them succeed. That's it in a nutshell.
Amazing. I love how so many businesses stem from the pandemic. I can highly relate to that. So, Dylan, would love to hear from you as well. Can you tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now in 2 minutes?
Yes. Okay. So I grew up in a small town, like Jamie, in Minnesota, on a farm. So on a farm, had like the picture perfect family. It seemed when I was about 7, though, my dad started using hard drugs, and we're going deep. But he has been an addict for over 30 years. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are shaped by difficult circumstances, and that was definitely one of mine. I was one of 2 siblings. My sister, she's 2 years older. She actually had a cardiac arrest when she was 15. They didn't give her CPR. She was in coma. And so now she's cognitively like a 9-year-old, permanently brain damaged. So my whole thought was, I'm going to get into, go to medical school at Stanford and become a psychiatrist and help addiction and brain injuries. And that didn't happen. I ended up getting into business. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. And I studied e-commerce, studied buying, product development, international business, got into corporate e-commerce for a few years, married someone in the military, moved to San Diego, and there's not a lot of e-commerce there. So I started an Etsy shop, and we made over $1 million in profit. I started teaching it about 7 years later. And we've taught over 4,000 or 5,000 now Etsy sellers how to scale their businesses. That business became a $10 million business within 14 months without ads. And we do about 1.2, a little more than that now, per month, million. And we have a team of about 50 people. And we are really passionate about helping people start and scale their Etsy shops all over the world. And now my husband was able to retire from the military at 15 years to do this with me full time. So I've just seen the power of entrepreneurship when it comes to financial and location and time freedom.
Amazing. That's what it's all about. Well, congratulations. I love that. And I love that you're giving back and teaching others how to do it as well. So thank you both for being here to inform the Wednesday audience. And audience, remember, this is all about you. So if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. We see Nina, of course, is from Iowa. I'm in Ohio and the Midwest as well. But we want to hear from you. Keep us honest. Let us know your comments and questions as we get into our topics. So let's get into our very first topic, which Dylan, we're going to be asking you to kick us off on, which is scaling without ads, how to build a multi-million-dollar brand organically. Dylan, can you set the stage for this?
Yes. So in the online education space, I had no idea what the potential was, but we got into it, and my husband and I are very lean. We run very lean. We're very financially conservative and frugal, and so everything that we had done with Etsy was organic without ads. Even how I met my husband was organic without ads, and by that I mean I had a blog that he found because I was making it go viral, and he found my blog. So we're very passionate just in everything we do to keep things very lean and healthy from the beginning. And I didn't realize that this was not the norm in 8-figure online education companies. So when we started, we leveraged YouTube, our podcast, some social media to really build this out without ads. And I didn't have a big following. I was making probably over 6 figures a month with less than 5,000 followers, about 5,000 YouTube subscribers. So it's not, especially if you choose the right business model. And for us, that was high ticket. When your prices are higher, you can compensate for a smaller audience just by building that connection and trust and over delivering on the free. And then they want to know, of course, what's behind the paywall. So that's our whole business model. We're in the high ticket, high touch coaching space, and it's a great model if you don't want to have to build this huge following, and you can nurture a small, high quality audience to make a lot of money without ads. And then once you kind of pour gas on that fire with more content and more collaborations, it just really explodes. And I think that model also allows you to build the infrastructure appropriately as you go. You're not out over your skis. And at this point, and I have friends in this space too who are at a similar level, but we were operating last month, our profit margin was 79%. And we did about 1.2 million. So it's a really great way to go. We still do some ads now, but we didn't do it until, 2 years in. So That's kind of my story and how we've done this without ads.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing that. Curious, would love to hear too from Dylan. Not Dylan, Jamie on this. I know that this isn't necessarily your expertise, but is there anything from that sort of caught your attention before I just ramble on? Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Let's try to mute background noise here. Dylan made the comment about making connections and how that was the impetus for some of this. And I think that's really key, particularly in businesses that don't have a high budget to go out and hammer with ads or avail themselves of some of these spaces. You really have to make those connections count for something. And I think that was something that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I love that. And kind of on that, the connections that we built, it's hard to do that in YouTube comments or in kind of comment sections, but we actually built most of those connections through DMs, Facebook and Instagram. So DMs, and we even have a full DM, we call them setters, setting team who's really there fostering and building connections. And it's a lot of effort. So, it's a lot of time on your phone in the beginning to kind of get things going, but sending those voice notes to people even, and in the beginning, we actually were selling directly through the DMs because the relationship building was so strong, and people would pay for a $9,000 program just over a DM conversation for a few days. Now we do it all over Zoom for selling, but nonetheless, the connections, people really crave connection. Yeah.
They really do. You're right. Such a good point. So yeah, on that point, I would love to hear from the audience. I see, we still just have Nina here commenting, but there've been a couple coming in on YouTube. If you comment, we can see it and we can pull it up on the screen and share it with the guests. So what are your thoughts here? But in the meantime, before I move into the second topic, which is trust is the real marketing currency. Is there anything else that either of you want to share about scaling without ads?
I did have a question for Dylan. Have you seen a change in the need for that communication as the external environment has changed? Have you seen people want it more, want it less? Has external economic and sort of societal factors changed that the parameters around your sort of connecting with your audience?
Definitely. And one of our themes for the year in, you could say one of our content pillars has been proof over promise. We're not saying what we're going to do. We're simply showing what we've done. And we're storytelling about people who are like them. So for me, I had an Etsy shop and people could see themselves in me. But now, having a team of 50 team members, like that's maybe not relatable, but telling the story of our clients is now relatable. So proof over promise is so important. And I think in the space of information and AI and ChatGPT, you can get information anywhere, but what people really need now and what they will pay for and what they will feel comfortable investing in is that implementation part. So the hand holding, they want someone to talk to. They don't want to, someone to just type back to them. They want someone to hear them in a back and forth dialogue. And you don't get that with YouTube videos, with podcasts, with Chat GPT. So that is something that's irreplaceable. And I think it's a unique competitive advantage that you can have if you're trying to break into any space.
Ooh, yeah, such a great topic. So building that relationship and building connection with your clients, absolutely couldn't agree more. I really actually like that. One of the things that we do here internally at Reveting is create a WhatsApp group with all of our accounts that we work with. So there's like basically a group chat with the client, anyone on their team that's working on the same projects, as well as anyone on our team who's involved, be it their video editor or their person producing their live stream, me, and then we're all on the same loop because communication really is key. But then also we have that opportunity for connection where we're able to celebrate the live stream, like, oh my gosh, great job, client. And like, wow, did you hear that question from the comments? That was really wild. And so it just like opens up the channel for communication, which then opens up the channel for connection. But yeah, if you get communication, connection, and then vulnerability, you're going to start building trust. So that leads us to trust is the real marketing currency. So Jamie, could you kick us off on this topic?
Sure. I primarily work with very small businesses and nonprofits in typically rural areas. And a lot of these organizations have come into being because they had a great idea. They had something they really wanted to do or sell or promote. And they had a logo and they went out and they started. And I usually come in after the fact and when they have issues with either scaling up or simply keeping the business going. And we usually start at the heart of what's going on with them. And one of the things that they find it difficult, because a lot of them aren't marketing professionals, a lot of them aren't sales professionals, they're people with 15 different hats on, is understanding that visibility does not equal credibility. You can buy reach, but you can't buy belief. You can't buy brand loyalty. And the brands that succeed are the ones that people truly believe in. And we start the conversation around consistency. There is behavioral science that basically says our brains are wired to look for patterns, and we equate predictability with safety. And when something feels consistent, it feels trustworthy. So when everything aligns with your brand, when your voice and your tone and your visuals all line up, people will start to think, I know who this is. I know what they're going to deliver. I trust them. That's really a positive brand experience in a nutshell. Oversimplified, but there you go. And so when I start to go in with a business, the first thing we do is audit your consistency. And Dylan talked about this in her talk. in a roundabout way, every touch point you have with a customer is a moment of trust. No matter where it is in your flow, in your journey, in your experience, it's a place where you can build that connection, you can build that trust, and you can build the brand loyalty. And so one of the things we do is audit consistency. You walk in and say, does my website feel do my website and my social media channels and my newsletter and the way we answer the phone and the way we interact in person in our shop, or the way we run our events when we're doing fundraisers, do they all feel like they come from the same company? If they don't, you're seeding doubt in people's minds about whether to trust you, either with their money or their time. I had a client who went through a full rebrand because once we walked in, we realized everything about the organization, which was an organization to promote other businesses, didn't sound like it came from the same place. And that was truly an effort that took about a year to get them into a spot where, with a consistent website that married to their social media channels, that married to their newsletters, in voice, in tone, and in visuals, made them a really solid resource in the community for other small businesses because they were trusted for what they did. And there are really three components to trust I'm going to throw out there. One is confidence. Do what you say you're going to do and do it consistently and be predictable. Character, which is do it with integrity. Show up and be your values. And communication. Most small businesses and organizations miss the communication part of all of it. They miss sort of the journey mapping. They miss those points in time where they could be in Dylan's DMs and talking to people and making sure that that connection is fostered and nurtured. Just because someone came in and bought something for you or was a client once and they're gone doesn't mean we can't keep in touch with them and continue to foster that brand loyalty. And really, in the end, and I'm scrolling through notes, I apologize if you all see that. If people believe in you and believe in what you're giving them and believe in what you're doing, they're going to come back again, but they have to feel like they trust you for it. And that's just one of the most valuable pieces of marketing that doesn't cost a lot of money, is building that trust.
100%. I think the name of the topic is trust is the currency or something like that. And it really is. And it kind of goes back to the whole marketing without ads thing, is like people don't want to be advertised to anymore. They don't really trust marketers and advertisers. So if your approach can be to close the trust gap with your buyers rather than like trick your buyers or trick the algorithm, or you're out there to like trick something. Your goal should really be to make your audience feel seen, heard, and make them want to take action. But yeah, I loved everything that you said about trust, and I think there's a lot of key components to build trust. But I love Layla's questions. How can teams measure whether they are actually earning trust, not just gaining traffic? What would you say to that, Jamie?
A lot of it has to do with understanding your audience, understanding how they show up and where they're showing up. Metrics are one thing, but really understanding how they speak and buy. There are some generational issues, and which is a whole other topic, but generational ways in channels in which they're showing up. I think conversationally and engagement is one heavy way of showing trust. If they're not engaging with you authentically, then they don't trust you. They're seeing you and they're scrolling by. So I think it is that two-way conversation that also, if you see more of that, then people care enough to want to engage, which is in that foundational part of trust.
Well, I know we were talking about LinkedIn earlier, so I don't want to go too deep on this, but since we help people on LinkedIn, I would say, LinkedIn is a place where only about 1% of people are actually posting, and I can't remember what the percentage of people who are actually engaging. So there are a lot of lurkers. So, you might have people who aren't engaging and who are just looking at your content maybe 40 times before they actually engage or reach out. Um, but just curious what anyone in the comments has to say about that. I love Layla's comment too. You need to be authentic and human. Absolutely. People can see right through it otherwise. And then Dylan, what's your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I love what Jamie said about consistency. And I think sometimes we have to remember that people are not seeing our brand 24/7 every day. So if we feel like we're being redundant, and I can speak to this a little bit from a personal brand side, but if we feel like we're being redundant and too predictable, like that is consistency. And I also think there's something to be said for what she was saying about uh, building trust with integrity and everything. And I've seen a fast way to do this is to use associations when you're building your brand, to kind of leverage trust that people have in another brand, and maybe associating with that brand, then they trust you more. So one thing, this is kind of weird, you guys, but one thing I do is I eat, do you guys know goldfish crackers? Those goldfish, like your kids eat them. So I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, so that's like a staple. And I will eat goldfish crackers. I'll just like shovel them into my mouth while I'm working, and it's become iconic to where people like know this is like so funny and relatable. I trust her. I could see myself doing that. And then they'll start tagging me in their stories when they have goldfish crackers. So it can be sometimes a simple thing that's not even like business related, but just feels like, oh yeah, they're predictable. I can trust that they're going to be the same, every week. They're not swinging the pendulum with who they think they are. And yeah, I think that consistency piece is so important. And a lot of times I think when you're building a brand, you feel like I have to evolve, I have to change. But sometimes it's like, well, let's just be a little consistent here. So I love that you mentioned that, Jamie.
Well, and consistency also doesn't mean, as someone said, it doesn't mean being boring, and it doesn't mean being the same. And I think business owners often confuse the two. Being consistent in your voice and tone and visuals and in your messaging sort of lays this foundation. It doesn't mean you can't, come out with different messaging. It just means you need to be thoughtful and strategic about it.
I love that. Yeah, we always try to encourage brands to, at least for your personal brand on LinkedIn, have 3 content pillars. So 3 things you want to be known for, but you should be able to write about those 3 things each 1,000 different ways.
Mhm.
So that could be with a picture or a story or a video or a carousel or, all these different formats. But always sort of like the same thing. So one of my content pillars, for example, would be live streaming. So I should be able to talk about live streaming or different things about live streaming, teach people how to get people to show up to their live stream, teach people how to get guests for their live stream. Like there's so many different topics. But yeah, I don't know. I do really appreciate too the topic of consistency, because I will say I think that's one thing that's helped me a lot is just with this show is going live every Wednesday for the last few years. And we don't always have, a huge audience, but the videos and the podcast having, 300 plus episodes, it just compounds and compounds, and it gets more and more views. And then we get more and more video clips. So yeah, it's been a really great experience, but I would love to hear from the audience. Nina says the fear of being boring is a huge concern of a lot of business owners. The fear of being boring. Yeah, we don't want to be boring. How do we not be boring, Jamie?
And I actually have that in my second topic. It's part of, I think there's a fear of being boring, and then there's doing what always has been done. And what we're finding out sort of from a marketing perspective and from a branding and from a communications perspective is the landscape is constantly changing. So it's less, I think, I would say 5 years ago, that would be a problem. It's less of a problem now because the digital environment and the external environment is changing so often and so quickly. It's tough to be boring in a world that's constantly shifting.
Nice. Yes, 100%. Okay, well, on that note, we probably should switch gears into our third topic. But before we do, we have a brief message from Cherry Assistant. So stay tuned.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he is a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM and Go High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
So if you're listening on podcast, on screen right now is a menu of services from Cherry Assistant. And those include lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, and project management assistance. So they do that and so much more. If you're watching on video, you can scan that QR code or just go to cherryassistant.com. Make sure that you tell them that you heard about them through us here at Revening's WinsDay for $250 off your first month. And then we want to encourage you to check out High Level. So I was talking with our guests pre-show about Go High Level. You all heard me talking about it before the show. So Dylan said that they use High Level. So Dylan, would you like to share a little bit about how you all use High Level?
Yes. So we use it in two ways. One, I didn't mention this, but we have a software company for Etsy sellers, and this is a separate entity, but we use Go High Level for everything within marketing there. So it's, email, segmentation, funnel building, everything, forms, everything's run through Go High Level there. But then with the coaching business, we actually use High Level in a little bit of a different way. So I know what you mentioned about HubSpot. So we actually use HubSpot for email because we have a high ticket closing type of model, and it works a little bit better with some of the integrations we needed. And then we use High Level for all of the funnels and landing pages, and it's been fantastic. And actually I love your connection with, this VA service. We hired GHL certified. I think there's like certification, and it's so affordable, but someone who's like truly an expert in High Level has come in, works with us full time, and it's just taken a lot of the guesswork out of it for us, and it's been so worth it.
Oh, nice. I love that. Okay, well, might need to get their information from you. But yeah, other than that, let's get into our third topic. So we'll bring that up on screen, which is brand versus product. What really drives marketing success? So could you kick us off on this topic, Dylan?
Sure. Yes. So I think a lot of people, when they're starting something, they are thinking about their brand. And when they think about their brand, they're thinking about their colors, their font, their logo, and that's kind of the starting point. But really, and I found this to be true, especially in e-commerce, instead of thinking about the brand, we have to think about the customer. Because if we pick this, what we think is branding, which is just aesthetics, and we don't even know who we're targeting, we're kind of working backwards. So instead, I always recommend thinking about the customer first, product second. That's like my motto. I'll put that on a hat, a t-shirt, whatever we need to drill it in. But customer first, product second. And then we want the brand to elevate, support, add value, perceived value to the product, and to really position us. So branding, I feel like that's a lot more about positioning for specific customers. So if we miss the customer first, product second part, we won't have any product market fit. And so coming up with a logo and a brand and putting all this effort into creating this beautiful website that's so-called branded, it just becomes such a waste of time. And I've seen so many people who start a business, maybe who don't have an entrepreneurial background, they kind of go about this backwards, and then they end up with something that looks cohesive because it's red and black or purple and teal or something, but it's not resonating with anyone, and they don't even know who they're trying to resonate with. So that is something that am like very much a believer in. And I don't know if you can relate to that, Jamie.
So right there, you've nailed it. A lot of it is I've created my logo and I've done the thing. And I have a lot of conversations with new clients about your brand is far more than your logo. And the idea of a true customer experience. We tend to forget as business owners what it's like on the other side of the table, the countertop, the screen, and forget, in our heads, we know all the things. We don't see the world the way the customer sees it or the client sees it. And understanding that the way you look from a perception, from a visuals, that's great, but there's so much more underneath of that. And that customer should be brought into your values and your mission statement and what you're looking to do. That's where all of it starts. So you are dead on with that.
Yeah.
100%. Anything else you to add on that, Dylan?
I would just say that you will grow so much faster if you simply give people what they want. And so for me, actually, even in my Etsy shop, I started my Etsy shop with one product, and it was just a picture of something at my wedding. It was a flower letter in the shape of a J for my last name. And then from that point on, I just looked at who is a profitable customer I want to target. And for me, it was that Pottery Barn mom who spends a ton of money on, everything. And I thought, okay, well, what can I serve her? What does she want? What does she spend money on already? And I think the key to like fast growth isn't trying to manipulate someone into buying something like a service or something that they don't need or wouldn't be interested in. And so it's just really hyper focusing, and Jeff Bezos talks about this, but hyper focusing on the customer. And I think as soon as you stop doing that, growth for sure will be stifled. Yeah.
So you hit on one other thing, and I'm just going to jump in really quickly.
Please.
You said you understood your audience, and the one thing that I've done some public speaking and asked the room, so who's your audience? And I have people always say everyone, and that is a immediate sort of no, it's not. Not even Amazon is marketing to everyone. And once you understand that you don't have the money or the resources to market to everyone, nor do you have a product that's going to everyone, understand who your audience is and how do we break it down and how do we know where they are and go where they are to market to them. You're so much further ahead of your competitors.
1,000,000%. Yeah. And even building out offers that are specifically meeting pain points of people you work with. Like this year, actually, we just launched our Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal Monday, Tuesday of this week. And we had an idea of what we were going to do. And then we actually, at the last minute, I was like, I'm just going to read through hundreds of survey results of our students. This was an upsell deal for them. And I went through all the survey results. I literally did a last minute shift, changed the offer to fit exactly what they wanted more of. So it wasn't what we, thought, oh, this looks like a good package or a good, set of services for them. It was, what do they want and what is the price point that will convert them? So it's also, customer first, product second, price point first, product second. I think that's another thing we forget. And the product might align, but the price point might be just way off and it might be too low. We tried actually a low ticket offer in July, completely flopped. I thought for sure we were going to have hundreds of people buy it. It was like 10 people. Yet when we have something that's $10,000 or higher, that converts. So it's you really got to pay attention to who the audience is. And as you grow, the audience might shift. But I do find once those algorithms learn you, especially podcasting and YouTube is our biggest thing. It's a very specific audience that you've trained, and you got to make sure you don't, veer off the tracks there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. We did have a comment come in from Ashwin. He says, I am into marketing. Email marketing, considered boring. My potential customers, quote, badly need it, but may not think about it or want it. What do I do? I think he's talking about Do either of you use email marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to us
So,
about it. Yeah.
oh my gosh, that was the first thing I ever hired out was email marketing,
Mm.
because it was time and effort. So like what pain point are you solving, Ashwin? Is it saving someone time? Is it making someone money? Is it improving click rates or open rates, or like what? I would always think about quantify, how can you help someone save time, save money, or make money? And if you can hit those angles in your marketing, because usually this is going to be for a business owner, like I think it's super important to hit those.
100%. Thank you for sharing that. And Ashwin, if you want to plug in any more comments, please feel free to do so. But in the meantime, we will transition into the next topic. But before we do, would either of you want to add anything else on brand versus product and what really drives marketing success? If not, I'll transition on. So let's get into marketing without the megaphone, making connection your strategy. So Jamie, can you kick us off?
So this really circles back to our first conversation in
Mhm.
many ways. Most businesses don't have really a visibility problem; they have a connection problem. Um, they think if they make more posts, they're going to have a bigger impact. If they make more noise, they're going to have more sales. And the shift that has to come and the perception that has to come into this. And again, I work from a small business perspective, so I'm always contemplating resource use. And how much it's going to cost in terms of time and money, but stop trying to do all the things all the time and start doing a few things really well. And this is really where cleaning up where you're showing up comes into play. A lot of businesses are trying to do what everyone else is doing and what has always been done. You know, we talked about that. And part of the problem about doing what's always been done is 4 years ago, marketing, and here's one of the hot takes I'm going to say about social media marketing. Marketing and social media for small businesses was a free pass. You could get out there, you could get ahead of people, you could show up in everyone's feed, and you got it for free. And now, unless you're spending thousands of dollars, it's not going to happen. But people consistently keep pushing advertising out rather than content out. They are blasting and broadcasting without any kind of authenticity. And it's really starting to look at your marketing ecosystem, looking where you're showing up, picking a few places where you're getting engagement and really fostering those and nurturing those. Anecdotally, I had a client who was out posting on Instagram and Facebook without really any kind of, it was just ads. It was stock content that was out there. And one of the things we realized was her audience wasn't on Instagram. So there was absolutely no reason for her to be spending time and money doing that. Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to getting that engagement. Engagement beats exposure every day of the week, particularly when you're a small business and you have limited resources. So do the things that Dylan was talking about earlier, making sure that you are communicating, you're not letting things sit, you are authentically showing up in your DMs and in the conversations. You're putting out content that's meaningful as opposed to just checking a box to put out content. The thing to remember that's super, super key, my friend Corey Leidick, who is in video marketing, says this all the time: attention is the most valuable thing someone can give you. Make sure that what you're putting out there to garner their attention is worth it. And make sure that you are aware of the channels that are currently being used by your target audience. There are some generational trends and habits that if you are targeting a Gen X group or a baby boomer group, there are certain places we're not going to show up. Don't waste your time and money there if that's your target audience. Do a little bit of research and understand where your audience is showing up so that you're taking the time to make those engagement points meaningful. And be creative. We talked a little earlier about sort of being boring. One of the things, I have clients who don't have a lot of money to spend on their marketing. So I actually encourage them to show up in places they wouldn't typically be seen. I had an attorney client who wanted to promote their personal injury practice, so I told them to go buy a demolition derby car at the county fair. That's where their audience is going to be. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek on things, but it's showing up somewhere unexpected but still on brand. So think creatively about where you can make one of your touch points count.
Think creatively. I love that. That's super inspiring. And I want to make sure that we address that. But we did get Ashwin here in the comments
Yep.
adding more into the email section. So he's saying saving emails from landing and spam, tech foundations like DMARC, email design, copy, campaign strategy, etc. I see people don't even think of email as a retention center. They focus on visits and traffic, not on building pipeline and make email the revenue monster that it truly is when done right. I love that. I do agree that email can really do a lot for you there. But I think it all comes back down to when you know your audience so that you can have that connection with them, like you were saying, Jamie. Because in cold email, which Ashwin, are you talking about cold email? I'm gonna guess you are, like using like Smart Lead or Smart Lead Clay, what's the other one? Instantly. Where you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're still being highly relevant and highly concise because people don't want to read. So in order to do that and really resonate, you have to know who your audience is and try to build that connection. But wow, Jamie, you said it so beautifully. Dylan, what's your take on what Jamie was adding?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think there's different ways to have touch points. Sometimes it's reaching out and having like an engagement or an interaction. Sometimes though, it's about giving them a piece of content that would nurture, which is why I like long form. So long form podcast or YouTube, and nurturing with information and building trust by over giving and being very generous, I think is key. And kind of, I got some ideas for Ashwin here. Do you mind if I share? I had
Please. And he said, oh, not cold email, the boring opt-in kind. Okay, that's my kind of email.
Yeah. Ashwin, I feel like with email, that's something that is kind of like a black hole to people. It's like so overwhelming. I don't even know what DMARC is. That sounds like scary. And I don't even know, spam. This sounds way too complex. So I think what you should do, because it sounds like you'd be serving business owners, is have some type of a short 30-minute weekly webinar, free training where you speak to them like they're third graders, at that kind of level. Be very clear, Alex Hormozy style communication. And I would do webinar style work. I teach SEO. So we have an software company. People have no idea what SEO is, and we convert so much higher on a webinar versus driving them to read something. And having testimonials and case studies through those webinars, I feel like would be a really good move for you.
I'm also going to throw in here, we've talked about audience and understanding your audience. I work in spaces where digital adoption is lagging behind by, I would say, 10 to 15 years. So email actually works better in certain spaces because they're not adapting or adopting to other channels. So understanding not just who your audience is, but where they are is really key, particularly for smaller businesses that are targeting regionally or in smaller spaces. It really is true in rural areas where we're putting a blanket sort of policy on how people consume information that literally doesn't work the same way where I live as opposed to, say, where Nina lives or where you live. It's been eye-opening for me in that respect.
100%. Yeah, I would love to hear from the audience. Does anyone else have any other comments on this topic? Marketing without a megaphone, making connection your strategy. I couldn't agree more about what, I can't remember who was saying it earlier, but more along the lines of quality over quantity. And we see this with our clients too, who are going live and creating posts, across channels, that when they understand their audience and they're willing to sort of share a little bit, vulnerably, like be it a selfie or something a little more human that people connect with, um, they tend to do better on social media. And so it's just like it comes down to product market fit a lot of the time. Like if you know your audience, then you're better able to connect with them and make them feel seen. And if you're able to do that, they're going to more likely trust you. And if they trust you, they're going to be more likely to buy from you. So, it's like a big circle. But Ashwin, we really appreciate your questions. He says, great idea, except that webinars, live streams, videos are scary. Start doing videos though. Absolutely, it is scary. That's what we help with. I will say one of our biggest objections that we get from founders when we're trying to get them to go live is, what is the word? Imposter syndrome. So they'll just be like, I don't know if I'm that person who can just go live on LinkedIn like that. And it's like, yes, you are. It's not CNN like some people like make it out to be. But also that's the only way to get long form content on LinkedIn. Anything over 9 minutes is to go live and then it stays there. But anyway, I digress. I could talk about that all day. But anyway, anything else either of you would like to add on marketing without a megaphone and making connection your strategy?
You said one thing just now, and it's the idea of being human. And I think that, and Dylan talked about it earlier, I think that that is the one thing that business owners and at least, in the space that I work in, they struggle with the idea of being vulnerable. They struggle with the idea of maybe having content out there that is transparent and shows them, as opposed to, I'm thinking of a restaurant that I've worked with, 10,000 pictures of food, but no pictures of the staff behind the scenes making the food, which,
right.
there's a little bit of that. We want that now because that barrier between the polished perfection that has been marketing and advertising for so long has been broken down. Now people expect that. They want to see that. They yearn for that human connection with the places that they're giving their attention to and their money to.
100%. So yeah, that does bring us back to the first topic, and kind of like what Dylan was saying earlier, is people are willing to pay the high ticket dollars for connection. So on that note, would either of you have any actionable advice for the audience on how they can create that connection with their audience, like starting tomorrow?
Oh man, I got some advice from Jen Gottlieb, who's a great speaker, and she says that when she goes on her stories, she actually does it on her video first, and then she uploads it, and she'll say, she'll start it out by saying, "Hey Sarah," or "Hey," like a friend's name, and she says the story as if she's just sending a voice note. So sometimes even just getting in the habit of sending voice notes to people that speaking, kind of off the cuff in conversation, where it's not a dialogue, not like a phone conversation, but you're like recording a voice note for someone, just getting into the habit of doing that more. So she'll start it by saying, "Hey, Sarah," and then the thing, and then she'll just trim off the front and she'll upload the rest. And I thought that was genius, just to reframe how you feel about things. But I think once you do it, it's scary at first, but if you hold back and you are too polished and you don't share enough, I think that is boring. And then people don't trust you because you don't feel real. And when you start sharing some of the real stuff, like my story, I said, I drank a latte and a Diet Coke after 6 p.m. and I stayed up till 4 a.m. Like, that was a stupid decision. Why did I do that? And I got tons of comments of saying like, "Oh, I've done that too." And what you want to hear is like "Me too. Oh, she gets me. She's like me." Or that business owner, like, I get them. Like we're similar in some way. And if you don't show unique things about the business or the day or your process, like no one will feel like they can relate to any of it. And so I think just remembering, like, once you start doing it, people will start reaching out to you and commenting, and they'll feel comfortable doing that. But if you're too uptight and too buttoned up, like, they might not feel like you're approachable. So being really just down to earth, I think, is very helpful to just have in your mind.
Definitely. Yeah. How about you, Jamie? Anything else you would add?
I would say that if you're looking for a way to make that connection with your audience, go back to your why. Go back to why you're doing what you're doing, why you started, why you got into it, why your passion for whatever it is made you begin to create this business. And in that why should be some kind of connection to the people who are buying it from you or purchasing the service. There has to be that visceral passion, that connection at the heart of why you're doing what you're doing. Go back to that and revisit it. And if it's not there, then you need to start rethinking and sort of reswizzling things.
Definitely. And Ashwin just says, terrific idea, Dylan. I am uptight, way too serious kind. Damn, I'll take this and run. And Nina says, appearing too polished can be intimidating as well. 100%. These are great comments, but we are running out of time. So I want to make sure we get to the guru of the week. Ooh, ooh. So I'm going to pull myself out of the screen and ask both of you to share a little bit about your guru.
Okay. Do you want to start, Jamie? Yours is more mysterious.
Mine's more mysterious. Mine's mysterious because I don't have a guru. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really use it that much. Therefore, I don't have anyone I follow there. So if you have anybody that you want to suggest, friends, you can send it to me when we get to the contact part of things.
There we go. And mine, I actually don't follow him as much on LinkedIn as his other platforms, but I know he's very active on LinkedIn. And this is Alex Hormozi. He's just been a mentor in ways he doesn't even know. But I had the privilege of meeting with him, and he really helped me out in this coaching business. And he is very authentic, builds his brand through associations, so consistent. And I think anyone building a business can learn a lot just by watching him.
Yes. Thank you so much for both sharing your gurus of the week. And along those lines, before we take off, could both of you share a little bit about yourself? Dylan, we'll start with you. Could you tell the audience a little bit about what it is you do, who you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you?
Yes. So I help people start Etsy businesses or scale their current Etsy businesses. So e-commerce, we also teach you how to expand onto Shopify and Amazon and other platforms too. But if you're wanting to become an entrepreneur or grow a business, whether it's digital products or physical products, Etsy is like just one of the best platforms with really a strong customer base. It's very profitable. And so that's who we help, whether you are just starting out or our top seller did $8 million on Etsy. So anywhere in between, yeah, if you need guidance, you can always find me at YouTube. I am over there consistently twice a week, long form, short form every day, and I go live once a week. And then the podcast is twice a week too. And then Instagram, if you want to have like a DM conversation and just chat about your ideas, totally happy to do that there.
Love that. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Jamie, how about you? Could you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, who it is you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how can they reach you?
So I specialize in brand strategy, leadership, and executive coaching for small businesses and nonprofits, specifically in rural areas, but I handle pretty much anywhere nationwide. You can find me at leadoutcoms.com. That's my business website. It has my speaker hub as well. I do speaking engagements to work with communications, internal and external, and programs and strategy for small businesses. My social media channels are relatively quiet. There are all kinds of reasons for that, but won't go into them here. So you can pretty much get me through the website.
Nice. Thank you both so much for sharing. Well, This has been an excellent episode. I really appreciate both of you coming and sharing your thoughts and insights. Next week, we have another really great conversation planned. We've got Jessie Roblowski. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. CEO and supervillain at decommoditize.com. And Ricky Ho. He's the CEO and co-founder of SourceReady. It's going to be an excellent episode. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to people being able to listen to your guys' replay, because there's a lot of really good hot tips on this, especially about connection in a world, and especially as we get into the holidays. A lot of people are feeling alone, and there's a lot businesses can do to make their audience feel seen. So I think these are really important topics. So thank you both for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Have a great night. Talk to you later, everyone. Bye-bye.
What?